All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Big thank you to everybody out there, as always, for listening to the show, watching, however you consume Talking Buffalo. I appreciate you guys very much. I also appreciate today's sponsor, Sunny Reds, 1531 Abbott Road, literally 5 minutes or so from Highmark Stadium. Some of the best wings you're going to get anywhere in Western New York. Great food, great drink menu, great vibes, great place to be, great place to watch some sports, including Notre Dame, a watch party coming up January 20th against Ohio State. I will be there for that. But anyway, you support this show. Do me a favor. If you happen to be in that area, go check out Sunny Reds. Tell them that Talking Buffalo sent you. All right, today is our weekly biggest takeaways episode. After every game that night, sometimes literally right after the game, we go on live. I have Joe from Queens with me, and we have our instant live reactions. This show, I get an opportunity to kind of sleep on the game, sleep on my thoughts. I get up early, and during the morning, I pop on the game film, watch them all 22, kind of pull up PFF, sift through the grades, and I feel like I have some more measured takeaways from this game. Some of them good, some bad. Sometimes I might think something in the moment watching the game, and then when I watch it back, I'm like, well, that was wrong. Or in other cases, I might suspect something. I go back, I watch the film, watch it back, and I'm like, confirmed. Lots of stuff to get to today. Of course, we're obviously going to go over takeaways from Denver, but we're also going to spend some time talking about Baltimore because the game of the year is coming on Sunday. The Buffalo Bills hosting the Baltimore Ravens in the AFC divisional round game. And look, this is the way it has to be. This is the way it has to be. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, for weeks and weeks and weeks, we have been, whether it's this show, a lot of other Bills content shows that you consume, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, whatever it is, the fights have raged between fan bases and sometimes media and content people as well about who is the MVP. Now, this playoff game on Sunday will have zero bearing on the MVP because that is a regular season award. And as far as I know, votes have already been casted for it. So who cares about the MVP? But the best two quarterbacks in football this season, bar none, and without question, the undisputed two best quarterbacks in the NFL right now this season are going head to head. Now, they played earlier in the season, lots of factors in that game. Baltimore blew the Bills out, and I'm not sitting here trying to be a Buffalo Bills apologist by any means, but there were a lot of factors that went into that game. We'll hit on that and talk a little bit more about Baltimore near the end of this episode, which is going to be going forward after we talk Denver stuff here. Biggest takeaways, all about the Bills and Baltimore. Again, just a monumentally epic, huge second round AFC playoff game. As far as the way things went on Sunday, let me start here. I'm going to give myself some credit. I deserve it. I deserve to give myself some credit. I'm the first person to call myself out. Talked about it on the show yesterday. I had one of the worst tweets. You know, what are we, not even halfway through January? And I might be the clubhouse leader for the worst tweet of 2025 already, because during that game, I put out something bitching about Joe Brady's play calling for the game, saying that it looked like Mitch Trubisky was the quarterback that Joe Brady was coordinating for. Just an awful take by me. But yeah, to get some things right now and then. And if you are a regular listener to Talking Buffalo, or even if you're not, but you happen to catch last Friday's show. So every Friday during the season, I have a Bills game preview. We talk about the Bills, the other team, 3 keys to a Bills victory, 3 bowl predictions, and a game score prediction. That's the format with the Friday shows. I had Ben Albright on last week. And I'm going to tell you, it was by far, actually, my most accurate, I almost said season, game preview episode that I've had the entire season this past Friday. All three keys that I have for the Buffalo Bills to go out and handle business against Denver, the three things I was worried about, the three biggest keys, all completely came true. Number one, I said the Bills need to do a really good job on defense of tackling. The Bills defense as a whole has been better this season with tackling, but it's still far from a strength. And it hasn't been a strength for whatever reason on the Buffalo Bills for quite a while. There's a lot of things I like about this team, but tackling often is not one of them. But anyway, on Sunday, they were on point with tackling. They really were. There were very few missed tackles in that game by the Buffalo Bills defense, and none of any real consequence whatsoever. They did a great job of tackling. Denver came into this game. I'm like, they're going to try to run the football. They're going to run screens. I think they run the third most screen passes in the NFL coming into the game. A lot of play action, things like that. Getting the ball short to intermediate in space and trying to get yards after the catch. And the Bills would have to come up, get to the football, and finish and wrap and make tackles. And I thought the Bills' tackling was excellent on Sunday. In fact, I'd go as far to say that might have been, there's a lot of bigger storylines in this football game from Sunday, of course. But I think low-key, this might have been the best job the Bills have done with tackling all season long. So that was a big key to me. That played out well. The second key was offensive line protection. I was concerned. I mean, Denver coming into this game, they led the NFL during the regular season in sacks, 64 of them, or 63. Baltimore was second with 54. So this was a team that could get after the quarterback better than anybody else in the league. And I was highly concerned about that and said that the offensive line really needs to bring their A game in pass protection. And I think for the most part, they did. Josh Allen got sacked twice. I mean, you don't want him to take any sacks, but 2 sacks against a team the caliber of Denver, I'll live with that all day. And one of them was just Zach Allen making, just doing Zach Allen things. He's an all-pro for a reason. He killed David Edwards on a rep and ended up getting a sack. But Benito, 13 and a half sacks coming into the season. He was not a real factor in this football game. He got a couple hits on Josh late in the game. I didn't like that, actually, that the Bills were still throwing the football, but the game was out of control already. So he was no factor, when the game was in doubt. Jonathan Cooper, 10 and a half sacks. No factor whatsoever for Denver in this football game at all. And Zach Allen had that sack, but outside of that, he wasn't even that big of a factor. So I thought the Bills' offensive line did a great job. All in all, I mean, Josh had to move around, was not always comfortable back there, but you're not going to be comfortable when you're playing a team as great as Denver. I was concerned this could be a time, a game where maybe they drop him 4 to 5 times, kill a couple drives. Didn't really happen. So offensive line protection was a key, and I thought that was really good. And then the last thing, my other biggest key of the game was no repeat of last year's just craziness, the flukiness. The Bills lost last year at home, Thursday Night Football to Denver because they turned the ball over 4 times and had numerous other stupid mistakes. Very first series last year, James Cook fumbles. Second series, a football goes off Gabe Davis's hands for an interception. Josh Allen also threw another interception. He also lost a fumble. Add it all up, and you had 4 turnovers. And not to mention, of course, the Bills still had the game won at the very end. Denver misses a field goal, but the Bills got too many men on the field, get a second chance. Denver kicks a 36-yard field goal. Bam. Bills walk off losers. Well, no repeat whatsoever of last year's flukiness. James Cook didn't fumble. Nobody fumbled. Josh Allen did not throw an interception. Now, the Bills' defense didn't get any takeaways. That's okay, though. I don't give a shit. The offense did not turn the ball over. And if it's going to be even at the turnover battle, and the Bills have been the best in the NFL this year, but even if it's even, I like the Bills' chances 99.5 out of 100 times. So the Bills did not give Denver anything at all by their own doing. No unforced errors. So all 3 of those keys played out, I thought, in a big way. Tackling, offensive line protection, and not repeating last year's flukiness. And then I nailed, to be honest with you, man, I nailed 2 of the 3 bold predictions that I had for the game. I said Ty Johnson was going to have a big role in this football game, and boy, did he ever. I mean, he literally had to play the game with that catch in the end zone, kind of blew that game open for the Bills. And then I said Matt Milano was going to have an impactful game, maybe even a turnover. Now, he didn't get a turnover, but Matt Milano certainly had an impactful game. More on that in just a few minutes. So, like I said, pretty good job by yours truly here, kind of running this game down and laying it out on Friday beforehand, how it would be playing out. As for like my takeaways during this game, I'll start here. The everybody eats, which kind of, I know a lot of people might think that's corny, but man, oh man, is it true? It was true during the regular season, and everybody eats really continued into the playoffs. So the Bills put up 31 points on Sunday. And like I said at the top, none of them came from defensive takeaways. Like the Bills have been scoring a shitload of points all year, but there's been games where the Bills have set them up golden. 2, 3, 4 turnovers in a football game. Hell, the defense might even score some points for them directly. None of that happened, but the Bills still put up 31 points. Okay. They had 471 total yards, including over 200 yards rushing. They possessed the ball for 41 minutes and 43 seconds, which is just incredible to me. Almost 42 minutes, folks. Time of possession. And on 3rd and 4th downs, they went 10 for 17. That's really, really good. They did all that. And they did that despite, the big names, if there are any on this offense besides Josh Allen, receiving wise, not really having that big of a game. Like, if you would have told me the Bills were going to have 471 yards of offense, 41, nearly 42 minutes of time possession, 10 to 17 conversion rate on 3rd and 4th down, scored 31 points, all offensive, none from defensive takeaways. And you told me they would do that despite the fact that Keon Coleman and Amari Cooper combined 3 catches for 13 yards, that Amari Cooper, somebody who, the popular sentiment this week was the Bills have been saving him for the playoffs, ready to unleash him in the playoffs. Well, Amari Cooper played just 30% of the snaps, or 36% of the snaps on Sunday, which was just 5th most among the Bills wide receivers, the least. All 5 wide receivers, he played the least. Dalton Kincaid played under 40% of the snaps. He only played 38% of the snaps. In fact, he played 17 less snaps than Dawson Knox did in this football game. The Bills only had 2 running back targets in the passing game for the entire game, and none of them were for James Cook. James Cook didn't even have a target in the passing game. So very little Kincaid on the field, very little Amari Cooper on the field, just 2 running back targets in the game, none for James Cook, and it just didn't matter. It just didn't matter. Every game, it's someone else seemingly stepping up and playing the hero role for that game. And this week, to me, it was 2 guys. It was RB2, Ty Johnson, and it was wide receiver 5, Curtis Samuel. Big ways, big ways. 2 huge catches between those guys, 2 plays that took a score that was 13-7, and the Bills felt in control, but still, the game's a little bit in doubt. They're floundering a little bit. They're not finishing drives. They're settling for field goals, and the score goes from 13-7 quickly to 28-7, and bam, you got a blowout. And that's because of the spectacular catch that Ty Johnson made and the great, getting open catch, and then after the catch run from Curtis Samuel, bam, you got a blowout. 8 guys caught a pass, and only Khalil Shakir had more than 3 targets on the day. He had 6. He caught all 6, 2 of them for 61 yards, including some fun yards after catch. That guy's so slippery. He is so fun to watch after he makes a catch. I think one of the most underrated players, maybe in the NFL. Certainly one of the most underrated wide receivers for sure in the NFL. But my point was, nobody got, a heavy workload on this offense because they didn't need to. Only one guy had more than 3 targets for this entire game. To me, that's pretty wild. So the everybody eats mantra truly continued into the playoffs. And you love to see that at this point. I think the Bills are at their best when you don't know where the football is going from play to play. I know there were at least a couple people. In fact, Joe from Queens on the live show last night, him and I actually got into this a little bit, and I'm not going to sit here, and pile on Joe when he can't defend himself, but he had a take that I completely disagreed with. He wasn't happy that Amari Cooper, actually, I take that back. I don't want to put words in his mouth. It wasn't that he was unhappy that Amari Cooper really didn't have any kind of significant game, but he feels like he needs to have a big game for the Bills to win. And I pushed back and I said, I don't think he does. I don't think he does. Can he? Is he capable of it? Would it be helpful? Would it be great? Of course. But the Bills can score 30 points or more without Amari Cooper doing shit. And they showed it on Sunday. They showed it on Sunday. It doesn't have to be Amari Cooper. You don't want to have to start forcing a football because Amari Cooper is a long-time bona fide number one wide receiver. You start doing that, that's kind of the problems you got into with Stephon Diggs. To me, it's more about Amari Cooper making the play when you need him to make the play. If it's a day where he's going to have 4 or 5 catches and he needs to have a lot of yards, plays down the field, you need him, you throw the ball to him, he makes the play. If he's only got 2 targets for the game, make him count. So I'm not buying into the theory that, I'm desperate for Amari Cooper to have a big game. I really don't care. This team proves week after week after week that it doesn't need to have any one specific player come up big in the passing game. So that's one thing. Another thing before I get to a quick break here was the explosives. Did not come early. Halftime, I remember I was talking to my wife, my son's girl. It's the crew of us 4. We watch all the Bills games together, and now we're superstitious for the playoffs. Like, ain't nobody else coming in the house during the playoffs games. But anyway, during the halftime, I was talking about it. I was like, all right, so the Bills are up 10-7, but it's like, I didn't feel great. Felt good, but I didn't feel great because the Bills, they were running the ball very well, and they were owning the clock, obviously, but just kind of everything felt like a grind. I'm like, at some point, I don't know that 10 to 12 play drives are sustainable, which actually, to be fair, they kind of were, at least in this football game. And I was hoping to see some explosives, like make some of these drives a little bit easier. Every play doesn't need to be a complete grind. And they did. They opened up. They got explosives. They came in the second half. Of course, the big one was the Ty Johnson 26-yard catch on 4th down. Dalton Kincaid caught a 35-yard pass down the left sideline, sort of. Not sure that he called it or that he caught it, but the Bills wisely got up to the line, ran another play, and Payton did not challenge it. I think it's because they already had one timeout burned and they didn't want to lose the second one, but obviously he should have challenged it. And by the way, P.S., you watch the tape back, Ty Johnson, a hell of a job on a blitz pickup to allow Josh to throw that ball to Kincaid. So you had the Ty 26-yarder. You had the Kincaid 35-yarder. Dawson Knox had a 25-yard catch in the third quarter, and that was during a drive where Johnson ultimately caught a touchdown. And, of course, the big one, the knockout punch, Curtis Samuel, 55-yard touchdown. So that's 4 plays of at least 25 yards in the second half. In total, the Bills ended up having 6 plays for the game of at least 19 yards. So the explosives, they didn't start out there, but they were there by the end of the game. Anyway, I'm going to take a real quick break, come back on the other side. I want to get into James Cook because I'm going to tell you what. I thought James Cook, for a good chunk of this football game, was actually the best player on the entire football field. We'll get into him, the defense. Again, a look at Baltimore, much more coming up right after this break. All right, biggest Bills takeaways continue here. The Bills pound the Denver Broncos. I called it yesterday a systematic destruction of the Denver Broncos. I think that's exactly what it was. 31-7, and we kick it off. Big week, of course. The Bills, the Ravens. It's the matchup that everybody around the league wants to see. All right, James Cook. Look, I said it before the break. I think he was often the best player on the field. I thought he set the tone for this game on his very first carry of the game. It was the Bills' second play. They do a pass to Shakir on first down, got a first down. Second play, James Cook takes a handoff up the middle, gets a couple yards, but then he gets stopped. Then all of a sudden the play keeps going. He is literally carrying 3 Denver defenders on his back, aided by Deion Dawkins, which was kind of funny. Literally, he was. And it went for 16 yards. Just a big man run. That's what it was. Big man run. And to me, that play, that singular play right at the beginning of the game for the Bills offense, to me, it sent a huge message to Denver's defense that, hey, you're going to be in for a fight today. This ain't going to be your day. Buffalo is going to be the physical team, by far the more physical team. And they absolutely were, led by James Cook. James Cook had 13 carries for 78 yards, and the Bills' lone touchdown in the first half. They started bringing everybody up to stop him in the second half. He still finished with 120 yards on 23 carries. And again, Denver was literally bringing 8, 9 guys into the box to try to stop him in the second half and daring the Bills to start throwing the football more, which they did. It opened things up for the passing game. And I'll tell you this, man, James Cook's NFL transformation to me has been absolutely remarkable, because he came into this league a couple of years ago. And trust me, I knew him well in college because I was a big fan of his during the draft process. I mocked him to the Bills in the second round many, many times. So I was ecstatic when the Bills took him in the second round. But he came into this league primarily a slippery, sleek pass catching threat more than anything else out of the backfield, and a good change of pace back. A guy who probably can get you 8 to 12 carries a game running the football, hopefully 2 to 4 targets minimum in the passing game. And that's the type of player he was coming into this league. Now, James Cook is basically a bell cow at this point. I mean, he really is. His vision is elite. I mean, he's got elite vision. He sees the holes, he sees the blocking, he sees the gaps. He knows where to go almost every single time. It is very, very rare at this point to see James Cook hit the wrong gap, hit the wrong hole, make the wrong decision with the football. Very rare when you see it happen. He hits holes with a purpose. He squares his body up, and he is delivering the blows now as much as he gets them. And he talked about it last offseason. He wanted to get faster and stronger. And holy cow, has he gotten stronger. And he's still got that speed. He's still got the speed to hit that corner and get downfield for a big play. He bounced one outside during this Denver game. I think he ended up getting like a 19-yard carry on it, but started out inside, had the speed to beat the corner. I think it was Riley Moss to the sideline, and bam, 19 yards down the field. Just a special player. And I refuse to talk offseason stuff right now, especially when the Bills are on a playoff push. But I will say one thing here. James Cook has went from, for me, being like, kind of like meh about giving a second contract. It's not a big priority. It didn't feel like it's a running back. And, the saying over the last handful of years is, give running backs big second contracts. I mean, you got Ray Davis. He's a rookie. He's good. Ty Johnson is incredibly good at what he does in his role. But man, James Cook is a star in this league right now, and you don't want stars leaving your building. And we've seen teams invest heavy in running backs this offseason, and look what it's done for him. Look, Saquon Barkley to Philly, Derrick Henry to Baltimore, who we'll see on Sunday again. Now, I'm not saying James Cook is Barkley or Henry, but he's a hell of a running back, and he is far and away your best running back. So I don't know that I'm eager to let him go get paid somewhere else, which has kind of been what I've been saying. Well, let him go get paid somewhere else. Oh, no. Imagine what a team like the Dallas Cowboys or a team like they just played, the Denver Broncos, what they would do to get a James Cook on their offense. He has just become incredible for the Bills this year. It's awesome to see. He might be the most improved player on this football team from last year to this year. And it's funny because statistically, rushing yard wise, he's actually regressed a little bit, not touchdown wise, but just rushing yard wise. He's not catching a lot of passes, but I actually think he's way better of a football player this year than he was last year. Lots of things to really like about the defense. Denver came into this game red hot on offense. They averaged 32.7 points per game over the last 7 games of the regular season. And that's no tiny sample size. And they did a great job of protecting the quarterback. Only 25% of the time on Bo Nix's dropbacks has he been pressured, which is 4th best in the league. They ran a lot of screens, which I think 15% of their plays were screen passes, which was 3rd highest in the NFL. And, minus the first drive, or I should even say play, of course, There's an awful lot to like about this Bills defense, man. And I want to start with the linebackers. I thought both of them needed to have maybe their best games of the year, and I thought both of them did. I'm talking about both, of course, Terrell Bernard and Matt Milano. I thought maybe they had their best games of the year. Terrell Bernard was active, and he was a big force in the running game. He had a tackle for a loss, made a few great plays in pass defense. One of them, he beat two blockers to a spot, and he stopped Marvin Mims on a screen for no gain. And he also got a hand on a really nice pass breakup. I talked about it. The screen games, the short passes, Marvin Mims scared the shit out of me coming into this game, and he just wasn't a factor at all. Terrell Bernard was fantastic. Ironically, he only had 6 tackles. There's been lots of games where he's had more than double that, but I thought he was incredibly effective in this game. And as for Milano, by far his best showing of the season. I mean, he was hunting down guys with speed, taking a good angle. That second series, so Denver scores a touchdown, a shock, bam, boom, bomb down the field. Bills answer with a field goal. Denver gets the ball back. Kind of felt pressure on the Bills defense. Like, you got to come up with a stop, because if you sleepwalk again and you're down 14-3, I don't care if it's home or not. I don't care if it's Denver or not. You're going to be in some trouble. And it was 3rd down and 6, and Matt Milano just hunted down Bo Nix, great angle, closing speed, forced him out of bounds, counted as a sack. Just a great play by Milano. He also spied Bo Nix perfectly another time in the second half that led to a Greg Rizzo sack. Tackled pretty well. He did miss one. And other than one play where Javonte Williams beat him out of the backfield, luckily Williams slipped after catching the ball. But aside from that, he was fine there too. Just looked more instinctive, more speed, more physicality by far than he's had at any point this season. 86.3 PFF grade, which was the second highest on the defense. Matt played every base snap, nickel snap, and then he would come out on dime looks. I'm very encouraged about Matt Milano now going into next week. And it sounds silly now in hindsight, but I was concerned about Matt Milano coming into this game because he did not play a snap against the New England Patriots. We talked about that a lot last week. I was of the mindset that maybe you go out and you get Matt Milano some work because he's still rusty. Sean McDermott clearly thought he's good to go, and it was the right call by the head coach. Both the linebackers were great. Speaking of, I thought Von Miller really, really good. He made the most. He had 20 reps, made the most out of them. 20 reps don't sound like a lot. Denver only had 42 plays, so he played almost half the snaps. And he made the most of them too. PFF credited him with 4 hurries and a quarterback hit. He was a force again for the Bills for sure. 88.8 grade, the highest of anybody on the defense per PFF. Just, you could see him getting after the quarterback. He had that one beautiful spin move. He had a nice bull rush move, just using his speed at times. He's hungry. Von Miller's hungry. He wants to be an impactful player. He doesn't just want to be another guy out there getting a handful of snaps and kind of getting in the vicinity of the quarterback. You could tell he wants to make a big play for this football team. And although he didn't technically get a sack, he certainly made his presence felt in this football game. I thought he was great. And then, of course, Groot. Groot was on the field for 35 of Denver's 42 snaps. He had a sack. He had 3 quarterback hurries. And he just played the way he's been most of the year, which is pretty goddamn good. So those 4 guys to me really stuck out specifically for the Bills defense. Another takeaway I have, which is kind of weird because I thought overall, now hear me out, overall, the special teams I thought was solid. The fake punt was, oh my God. You want to talk about being pissed off? Woo! I wish there was a hidden camera on me when that happened, but that sucked. All right. It sucked. Matthew Smiley is just, I don't know. It seems to be a weekly blunder with something with his unit. I don't know if they were in the right call or not, because when you look back at the film, Mims broke off the route and Jamarcus Ingram just kept running backwards. Like, clearly he did not expect, which I guess you could put on coaching for not having that put in the player's brain. I don't know. But Ingram to me is kind of, he was at fault on that play. He should have been a little more aware of what was going on. And it was a brilliantly executed and ballsy, and I mean really ballsy play by Sean Payton. A good call there, and it worked. Annoying for sure, but all in all, my point was is I thought the Bills' special teams was really solid. Tyler Bass, somebody we all obviously are concerned about, made all three of his field goals, and short or not, I don't care. All three of his kicks he made. He also made all three extra points. So he was 6 for 6 kicking the ball. His kickoffs were great. Only one of them was returned, and Dorian Williams put a lick on the return. Only had a 16-yard gain. Also had a kick by Rule, and I didn't even know this. It like bounced like 1 yard before and then went through the end zone. And Denver only got the ball at the 20 instead of the 30 before that. So Tyler Bass was pretty much, he had a perfect day. Sam Martin only had one punt. And boy, did he ever make the most of it. 45 yards hanging in the air, which led to one of the best hits you've seen all season. Matt Collins, of course, it'd be Matt Collins, just absolutely destroyed Marvin Mims. Biggest, that's like the hits that you see in the old 80s, highlights. When you go back and you watch when back in the day when football players were basically murdering each other each week. It's like Matt Collins borderline murdered Marvin Mims Jr. on that play. Not a good day for Marvin Mims Jr., by the way, if you feel the theme here. But anyway, that punt was great. And then Khalil Shakir, who had to fill in for Brandon Codrington, had 2 punt returns, one of them for 7 yards, and then a really nice, fun, shifty 23-yarder. So all in all, I thought it was actually a pretty damn good game for special teams other than that blunder. One little side point I want to add into that. Sean Payton, if I'm a Denver fan, I'm not too happy with how Sean Payton coached that football game. So you got the balls to run a fake punt like that and have it work, and then you punt on 4th and 7 on the same drive inside the 40-yard line or at the 39, 4th and 7. You really want to show some balls. You want to show some confidence. Go for that. That was about 3 to 4 yards outside of the range for their kicker. Go for it then. He just punted the football. I thought that was a kind of a cowardly call by Sean Payton. There was other things throughout the game with his coaching that I wasn't a fan of as well. Some other things quickly here that I did love too. I love that they went in the second half anyway after Patrick Surtain. And they cooked him, not once, but twice in the second half. Samuel, of course, the big play, the knockout punch for 55 yards. I mean, geez, God, did he smoke him. And then Matt Collins, a nice 19-yard play over the middle, beats him. Got a penalty afterwards. I ain't got no problem with it. If there's ever going to be a taunting penalty that it's not going to piss me off in this situation, go have your fun, Matt Collins. That's who you are. But anyway, the Bills tested him. They tried him, and they beat him twice, both in the second half. Surtain also got away with a terrible holding call on Dalton Kincaid. Egregious. I can't believe that wasn't called. But anyway, what a great day for Surtain. Ben Albright on the show last Friday said that he hasn't been the same player. He's been trying to get back. He hurt his ankle like 5 weeks ago, but he hasn't been quite the same player. And after kind of staying away from him in the entire first half, they tried him in the second half. So I was all about that. And again, what they did to Marvin Mims Jr., a guy who was really scared me, man. He had 2 rushes in this game, 1 catch, 1 punt return, -3 yards. This is a guy who came into the game with 18 catches for 206 yards and 4 touchdowns in his last 3 games. So he was a big weapon, and the Bills just completely took him away. I love that the Bills only had 1 penalty, unless I'm wrong. I don't think I am, though. I went through the game, and I was kind of keeping track. I only had the Bills being marked for 1 penalty on the defensive side of the ball the whole game, and that was Christian Benford, who had a holding before the play penalty. But that's it. So the Bills defense played some very disciplined football. You'll love to see that. And like I said, overall, Denver just only ran 42 plays. That is the least for an NFL team in a playoff game going all the way back to 2011. And it is the least amount of plays ever for a Buffalo Bills playoff opponent. So obviously, you'll love to see that. I don't care if it's Denver. I don't care if it's Baltimore this week. I don't care if they can get past them, if it's Kansas City, Detroit, Philly, whoever it may be the rest of the way. If you're going to possess the ball for 41 minutes, if you're going to hold the opposition and running just 42 plays, you're almost certainly going to win the football game. I mean, you cannot chalk it up or script it up any better than that. Last thing, and I'm saying this tentatively because I do have to say I'm recording this mid-afternoon on Monday. Sean McDermott has not spoken to the media on Monday, so I don't know about any other potential injuries. But so far, it looks like the Bills avoided any catastrophic to the lineup type of injuries. Now, Ray Davis definitely has a concussion, and that looked like a pretty sick one. I have no idea what his status is. I don't want to speculate, but it may be tough to get him back this week. Teron Johnson had a scare. Alec Anderson had a calf injury. He did return and play. That's something certainly to monitor. Cam Lewis went out of the game with a head or a neck issue, but I think he was okay afterwards. So what I'm saying is there were injuries, but nothing like, oh my God, I can't believe, like, of course, like a Josh Allen, but nothing to a significant starter. Last year, if you remember, the Bills beat Pittsburgh in the wild card round, but they lost Terrell Bernard and Christian Benford to injuries in that game, and neither guy were able to play against Kansas City, and that obviously turned out to be a very, very big deal, not to mention Rasul Douglas, hobbling around last year on one leg. So knock on wood, it looks like the Bills escaped with any big time injuries. Couple things quickly here that I didn't like much at all. Taylor Rapp, Ian Douglas got scorched by the rookie Troy Franklin on that play. And Taylor Rapp was also responsible, getting beat behind him for a big play against the Patriots last week. And I don't care that it was backups out there surrounded by whatever. He was on the football field, made a mistake, let a guy get behind him for a big play, and he did it again this week. So back-to-back weeks. Kind of worried a little bit right now, especially going into this next game, that he's becoming a little bit of a liability recently anyway. He's come back. He was playing well, I thought, earlier in the year. And then he got hurt. He missed 3 weeks. And these first 2 games back, I don't really feel like he's been close to the same player that he was earlier this season. So my radar is up on that at least a little bit. He was beat out a couple other plays during this game. He was really late on one pass. In fact, he was so late that I thought he was going to get nailed with a targeting hit, but he was so late that he missed the guy as well and didn't get the penalty. But yeah, that concerns me. Look, with Damar Hamlin, I thought he played fine. I do. And, I feel like I say that a lot. But the one thing, look, I don't know what Bobby Babbitt is thinking, bringing him on blitzes, but I think there were 3 times he blitzed, and it was a popular thing. Everybody noticed this shit too on Twitter. I saw it during the game, but he's like blitzing and he's just running directly into the blocker, not even trying to go around anybody. It's like, what are we doing? Just looks really slow on these blitzes too. Like, I feel like Damar Hamlin could have blitzed. What did Denver run? 42 plays? He could have blitzed 42 times, and I'm not sure he would have touched the quarterback once. He ain't getting past no blocker. He's just not doing it. So blitzing Damar Hamlin, I find it useless. And I don't even blame him. I blame the Bobby Babbage more for that. That's not to say Damar Hamlin can't get up near the line and be physical. In fact, I think he has dramatically improved this season, if I'm being honest with you, with some run blitzes or just being more active in the running game at the line when they do bring him up into the box. But him blitzing on passing plays, that was disastrous and borderline comical to see it. Christian Benford, one of my favorite Bills this year. I thought he was criminally underrated. I thought it was a joke that he wasn't at least an alternate. He wasn't even an alternate for the Pro Bowl. That's just stupid. I don't want to get into a rant. But anyway, Christian Benford had a rough first half. Did not play well in the first half. Cortland Sutton got him a couple times. For the game, he gave up 4 catches for 62 yards, which by most people's standards, that's fine. But not by Christian Benford standards. That was like probably his worst game of the season. I think he's only had 2 games this season where he's really given up plays. This game and the Jets' first game, Garrett Wilson got him a couple times. He only had a 41.5 PFF grade, so it was not a good game for Christian Benford. I'm not worried about Christian Benford. See, I am worried about Taylor Rapp, and I'll stand by that. I'm not worried about Christian Benford. Just one of those days where a good receiver got his number a few times. No big deal, but I do have to call it out. The Bills were just, I don't like the fact that they were only 1 for 5 in the red zone, although that is misleading. We'll be fair here. The last 2, they were protecting a 31-7 lead late in the football game. They weren't really, well, I'm not going to say they weren't trying to score, but they weren't, aggressively trying to score. And then at the very end, it was just kneel down. So they literally were just trying to get off the field. But still, even if you take those two away, 1 for 3 is not great. They got inside the 10-yard line twice in over the first half and 5 minutes of the third quarter. And they settled for field goals 2 of those 3 times. Might not get away with that when you're playing, next week against the Baltimore Ravens. So those are my biggest takeaways, things I liked, things I didn't like about this football game. As far as Baltimore quickly here, we're really going to start turning the undivided attention towards the Bills-Ravens game with tomorrow's show. But I will say this now quickly. They're obviously an incredibly dangerous matchup. Most would say, if they're being honest anyway, I think most fans would say that the Ravens are the team that they wanted the Bills to play least in the playoffs. Evidenced by the fact, I'm sure, and I was, pretty much everybody was rooting for Pittsburgh to try to beat Baltimore on Saturday night, which was very obvious that shit wasn't going to be happening. But anyway, it's a tough matchup, man. Baltimore ran for 200. If you thought the Bills ran good against Denver, Baltimore ran the ball for 299 yards Saturday night against Pittsburgh Steelers. So that's lethal. Lamar Jackson, he's going to win MVP or he's going to finish second, one or the other. And everyone's like, well, he beat you with his legs. Let him throw the ball. Okay, but you know what? Your boy had 4,000 yards passing this year. He threw for over 40 touchdowns, just 4 interceptions. He could throw the football just fine. And he ran for 900 yards. Just a sick season that Lamar Jackson is having. Of course, Derrick Henry, 1,900 yards rushing this season, 1,921 to be exact. And then he was just literally unstoppable against Pittsburgh in the wild card. 186 yards, 2 touchdowns, just unstoppable. And the crazy thing about the Ravens right now is we talk about those 2 guys so much. How about a Ravens defense that's been the best in the NFL over the second half of the season? They got some studs on that side of the football. We'll spend a lot of time later in the week talking about them. But, like Nnamdi, I got to say his name wrong. It's never easy for me to say. Madubuike, such a beast, man. 6 sacks he had this year. Throw the sack number out. He's just a stud. Kyle Van Noy, 12.5 sacks. Big, he almost killed Josh Allen back in week 4. Always had 10 sacks this year. Raquan Smith is just a beast. Michael Pierce, very good. And then they got a great back end. Well, at least some great players on the back end, led by Kyle Hamilton, of course, and Marlon Humphrey. So this is a great team, a great roster, and on paper, a bad matchup in a lot of ways for Buffalo. Let's just say what it is. Now, half-point favorites, this thing is going back and forth in terms of betting. I think it's going to be like that all week. The Bills open as a 1.5-point favorite. And as I'm recording this, Baltimore is actually a half-point favorite as we speak. Most fans, especially Baltimore fans, are going to point to the fact that they beat the shit out of the Bills earlier this season, 35-10. But I'll say this about Buffalo right now. It's not the same football team as week 4, physically and identity-wise, both. And not to make excuses, but it's undeniable. You look at the Bills, their second level of defense. When they played the Baltimore Ravens in week 4, the starters were Balin Spector, Dorian Williams, and Cam Lewis. That is a far cry from Matt Milano, Terrell Bernard, and Taron Johnson. None of them played. Mari Cooper wasn't even on the roster yet. Khalil Shakir banged up in that game. Curtis Samuel was not healthy whatsoever. And the Bills just played bad and got beat. Straight up. Simple as that. I think the Bills are a much different football team right now. There's a different feel with this football team right now. They just put up 31 on Denver. They put up 30 on Kansas City. They put up 48 on Detroit. I'm confident the Buffalo Bills could get to 30, whether they're playing Baltimore or anyone else for that matter. But we're not going to look past this game. Let's just stick with Baltimore. You can't sit there and tell me that you don't think the Bills are very, very capable of getting to 30 against Baltimore. The problem is, who knows if that's going to even be enough. So can you get to 40? Maybe they could do that as well. But perhaps for me, the most important factor, they're home. This game is in Buffalo, not Baltimore. To me, that potentially makes a huge difference. Not to mention they're suffering from an injury. Who knows what's up with Zay Flowers, a guy who had 1,000 yards receiving, a much, 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 much better version of Marvin Mims Jr. that the Bills obviously have to account for if he's on the field. Last year at this time, we talk about the injuries with the Bills. At this time last year, after the wild card round, they yanked AJ Klein from vacation. And not only did they do that, but they tasked him with covering Travis Kelce. So the Bills are going to be a little bit healthier and better off this time around. And like I said, we're going to talk plenty more Bills Ravens starting tomorrow. Matt Warren from SB Nation will join me. And we're going to have, like I said, talk all week long. I definitely got a couple guests. Hopefully by tomorrow I can make it official and announce it on the show. But I plan on having one Baltimore Ravens content media person on the show before the week is over. And then I got something else cooking up, hopefully for a Friday show. But on that note, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you again for watching and for listening. If you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and do that right now. It helps us grow the show. And I'll be back, brand new show tomorrow.